Imagine standing beside a campfire 40,000 years ago. Night has fallen, the temperature is dropping fast. Somewhere beyond the circle of light, predators are moving through the darkness. Then suddenly, a scream. A hunter has returned to camp, but something is terribly wrong. His leg is shattered. Maybe he fell from a cliff while tracking reindeer. Maybe a mammoth charged. Maybe another human attacked. Nobody knows. What everyone does know is this. In the Ice Age, a broken leg should have been a death sentence. There are no hospitals, no antibiotics, no painkillers, no surgeons, no ambulances. And yet, archaeologists keep uncovering something impossible. Ancient skeletons appear again and again with horrific injuries, crushed skulls, broken spines, shattered limbs, missing arms. But these individuals didn't die immediately. Many survived not for days, but for years. Think about that for a second. Researchers have discovered Neanderthals who lived decades after suffering devastating injuries. One ancient human survived despite losing an arm. Another lived after being nearly blinded. Others show evidence of severe fractures that healed completely. How? How could people living in caves surrounded by ice, starvation, and predators possibly treat such serious wounds? At first, the answer seems obvious. Perhaps ancient humans were simply tougher than we are. But the deeper archaeologists looked, the stranger the story became. Because the evidence suggests something far more surprising. The real mystery isn't how ancient humans survived serious injuries. It's why other humans kept them alive. And that raises an even bigger question. What did our ancestors understand about care, medicine, and survival that allowed entire communities to keep badly injured people alive in one of the harshest environments humanity has ever faced? The most obvious explanation is simple. Ancient humans healed naturally. After all, human bodies are remarkably resilient. Even today, broken bones can mend without modern medicine if they remain stable. Cuts close, bruises fade, muscles recover. Our species evolved long before hospitals existed, meaning natural healing mechanisms had millions of years to develop. At first glance, the archaeological evidence seems to support this idea. Many ancient skeletons display perfectly healed fractures. Researchers examining Ice Age remains frequently find broken ribs, cracked arms, and damaged fingers that fuse back together. Hunters probably expected injuries. Picture a group chasing enormous prey across uneven terrain. They climbed cliffs, crossed frozen rivers, and confronted animals weighing several tons. Injuries were inevitable. Perhaps serious wounds were simply common occupational hazards. And in some cases, that explanation works. A broken finger could heal, while someone continued contributing to camp life. Minor fractures might recover during seasonal migrations. Humans, like many animals, possess impressive healing abilities. But here's where things become difficult. Some injuries found in ancient remains weren't minor, not even close. Researchers studying a famous Neanderthal skeleton from Shanidar Cave in modern-day Iraq encountered an astonishing collection of trauma. The individual had suffered a crushed eye socket, severe damage to the right arm, hearing loss, and injuries affecting mobility. Yet he survived for years. Think about what that means. A partially blind, partially deaf hunter with limited arm function somehow remained alive in an environment filled with predators and food shortages. Natural healing alone couldn't explain it. And Shanidar wasn't unique. Again and again, archaeologists uncovered people whose injuries should have prevented hunting, gathering, or self-defense entirely. That should have answered the question. Instead, it created a bigger one. If severely injured individuals couldn't fully care for themselves, who was feeding them? Who protected them? Who carried them during migrations? Suddenly, the mystery shifted. The story was no longer about biology. It was becoming a story about society. For a long time, many researchers assumed prehistoric life was brutally unforgiving. The common belief was simple. If someone became seriously injured, the group abandoned them. It seemed logical. Ancient humans lived on the edge of survival. Food was uncertain. Winters were deadly. Every member had to contribute. Why would a struggling group devote precious resources to someone who could no longer hunt? Then the evidence started contradicting that assumption. One discovery after another revealed individuals surviving injuries that required long-term care. A man from prehistoric France suffered multiple fractures and lived long afterward. Another ancient human survived with severe spinal abnormalities. In several sites, researchers identified elderly individuals missing teeth entirely, yet they survived years beyond losing the ability to chew effectively. Picture that scene. Someone without teeth cannot process tough meat alone. During the Ice Age, that limitation could be fatal unless someone else prepared food, unless someone shared, unless someone cared. Pretty strange, right? The pattern kept repeating across continents and across thousands of years. Even more surprising, similar behavior appears among our closest relatives. Chimpanzees groom wounds, support injured companions, and sometimes share food. Elephants have been observed assisting wounded herd members. Wolves feed injured pack mates. Could ancient humans have inherited deep evolutionary instincts for caregiving? Possibly. But there was another clue. Researchers noticed that many healed injuries required not just compassion but planning. A badly broken femur, for example, demands weeks or months of restricted movement. The injured person needs shelter, protection, water, food, and ongoing attention. That's organized care. That's cooperation. And cooperation changes everything. Because if humans regularly invested in injured individuals, perhaps serious injuries weren't merely personal crises. Perhaps they strengthened social bonds. Perhaps caring for the wounded helped transform scattered individuals into true communities. But if ancient humans provided long-term care, did they also develop actual medical treatments? The answer emerged from caves, graves, and ancient skulls. And it stunned archaeologists. In 1865, workers uncovered something extraordinary in a cave in France. It was a human skull. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then researchers looked closer. A perfectly shaped hole had been deliberately cut into the cranium. Even stranger, the edges showed signs of healing. Whoever underwent this procedure survived. Today, we call this practice trepanation, the surgical removal of part of the skull. Archaeologists have since identified thousands of examples across the ancient world, some dating back more than 7,000 years. Imagine that. Long before written language, before cities, before metal tools became widespread, humans were performing cranial surgery. Naturally, researchers wanted answers. Why would anyone drill into a person's head? Some proposed spiritual explanations. Others suggested treatment for head trauma, seizures, or intense headaches. No one knew for certain, but one fact was undeniable. Many patients survived. That discovery raised an astonishing possibility. Ancient humans weren't simply waiting for injuries to heal. They were intervening. Further discoveries reinforce the idea. Archaeologists uncovered carefully aligned fractures, suggesting broken bones had been intentionally stabilized. Ancient splints made from wood and plant fibers appear in later societies. Evidence from prehistoric dental remains reveals surprisingly sophisticated attempts to treat tooth problems. Then came another clue. Chemical analyses of ancient dental plaque and residues revealed traces of medicinal plants. Plants such as yarrow and chamomile, both possessing anti-inflammatory or medicinal properties, appear associated with ancient populations, including Neanderthals. Researchers expected primitive diets. Instead, they found possible evidence of pharmacology. Think about that. Some of our distant ancestors may have recognized which plants eased pain, reduced swelling, or fought infection. But how did they acquire that knowledge? Trial and error alone seems unlikely. The risks were enormous. So where did prehistoric medicine come from? To answer that, we need to follow one remarkable individual whose skeleton changed the way scientists viewed ancient humanity forever. His name is impossible to know. Archaeologists simply call him Shinidar I. He lived roughly 45,000 years ago in what is now northern Iraq. When researchers excavated Shanidar Cave in the 1950s, they expected another ordinary Neanderthal skeleton. Instead, they found a survivor. Shanidar 1 had endured injuries that sound almost unimaginable. His left eye socket had been crushed, likely leaving him blind in one eye. His right arm was severely damaged and may have been partially amputated or permanently useless. He suffered hearing impairment. His leg showed signs of trauma, causing a noticeable limp. And yet he lived into middle age, old by Ice Age standards. Pause for a moment and picture his daily life. A partially blind, hearing-impaired man with limited mobility moving through rugged mountain landscapes. How did he hunt? How did he escape predators? How did he survive harsh winters? Many researchers reached the same conclusion. He probably didn't survive alone. Someone must have shared food. Someone may have helped him travel. Someone protected him. For decades, Shanidar 1 became one of the strongest pieces of evidence suggesting Neanderthals cared deeply for vulnerable group members. But the story didn't end there. Recent excavations at Shanidar Cave uncovered additional individuals, reopening debates about Neanderthal behavior. Some researchers even argue that the cave may have served as a place of repeated remembrance or burial. If true, the implications are profound. The old stereotype portrayed Neanderthals as brutish and emotionally limited. Shanidar told a different story, a story of compassion, a story of social responsibility, a story in which keeping injured individuals alive wasn't unusual. It may have been expected, and once researchers began looking for similar patterns elsewhere, they found them almost everywhere. Across prehistoric Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, the same pattern emerges repeatedly. Injury, survival, care, again and again. A prehistoric farmer in one region survives a devastating fracture. An elderly hunter elsewhere lives despite losing most teeth. A skeleton thousands of miles away shows evidence of prolonged disability and years of continued life. Different cultures, different environments, same behavior. Why? Because humans possess something extraordinarily unusual among animals. We survive collectively. Imagine two Ice Age groups. In one, injured individuals are abandoned. In the other, everyone contributes to recovery. Which group retains more knowledge? Which preserves experienced hunters, skilled toolmakers, storytellers, and elders who remember migration routes? The answer becomes obvious. An injured elder might no longer hunt mammoths, but they could teach younger generations where water sources existed, how to shape stone tools, or which plants were poisonous. Suddenly, caring for the injured isn't charity, it's strategy. Anthropologists studying recent hunter-gatherer societies have observed similar dynamics. Food sharing, cooperative childcare, and collective defense dramatically increase survival odds. Humans evolved within networks, and serious injuries may have strengthened those networks. Think about a camp caring for a wounded hunter. Someone gathers extra firewood, another prepares food, others stand guard. The injury affects everyone. But in responding together, the group becomes more cohesive. Interestingly, researchers increasingly suspect that our species' success over other human relatives may partially stem from unusually extensive cooperation. Not stronger bodies, not larger muscles, better social systems, better information sharing, better caregiving. If that's true, then every healed fracture preserved in ancient bone represents something larger than medical survival. It represents civilization in its earliest form. Yet even this remarkable pattern had limits. There were times when ancient care failed, and those failures revealed just how difficult survival truly was. Not everyone survived, far from it. Archaeological sites contain countless examples of injuries that clearly proved fatal. Massive skull fractures, embedded spear points, crushed chests, and untreated infections appear throughout prehistory. Without antibiotics, even relatively small wounds could become deadly. A simple cut contaminated by dirt might progress into overwhelming infection. Broken bones that healed incorrectly could leave individuals permanently disabled or kill them outright. Then there were the truly catastrophic injuries: a shattered pelvis, severe internal bleeding, major head trauma. Even today, such injuries can be life-threatening. In prehistory, survival odds dropped dramatically. Researchers have also identified periods of famine and environmental stress when communities may have lacked resources to support everyone. Compassion has limits when starvation threatens the entire group. And then there are the unusual cases. Some ancient skeletons show evidence of violent conflict, projectile wounds, blunt force trauma, even signs of cannibalism. In these circumstances, social bonds sometimes collapsed. The rule broke. Why? Because human societies have always balanced cooperation with competition. Care was powerful, but it wasn't guaranteed. Survival depended on circumstances, resources, relationships, and sheer luck, which makes the long-term survival of severely injured individuals even more extraordinary, because every survivor overcame not one challenge, but many. And that leads us to the deepest answer of all. So how did ancient humans treat serious injuries? The surprising answer is that they didn't rely on a single solution. They relied on an entire survival system. Yes, they used natural healing. Yes, they probably employed medicinal plants, splints, wound cleaning, and even primitive surgery. But those techniques alone were not enough. The real treatment was community. Everything suddenly connects. A broken leg heals because others bring food. A wounded hunter survives because someone guards the fire. An elder lives despite disability because knowledge remains valuable. Medical care and social care become inseparable. And this may represent one of humanity's greatest evolutionary innovations. Think about other apex predators. A lion with a shattered leg often dies. A solitary predator rarely receives prolonged assistance. Humans changed the equation. We created networks capable of absorbing weakness. In doing so, we fundamentally altered natural selection. Individuals no longer survive solely because they were strongest. They survived because they belonged. That shift transformed everything. Knowledge accumulated across generations. Skills persisted. Children learned from grandparents. Communities retained experienced members. Culture expanded. Some anthropologists argue that humanity's defining adaptation wasn't intelligence alone. It was cooperative intelligence, the ability to share burdens, to invest in vulnerable individuals, to recognize that another person's survival ultimately benefits everyone. Suddenly, ancient medicine looks very different. Trepanation, herbal remedies, splints, and wound care matter enormously. But beneath every treatment lies something even older: empathy. Shanidar once survived because someone cared whether he lived. An elderly, toothless hunter survived because someone softened food. A wounded gatherer recovered because others waited. The deepest answer hidden inside ancient bones is not technological, it's emotional. Long before cities, governments, or written laws, humans were already practicing a radical idea. The injured were worth saving. And perhaps that decision changed the course of our species. Return to that campfire 40,000 years ago. The injured hunter lies beside the flames. Snow drifts outside the shelter. Wolves howl somewhere beyond the darkness. By every brutal rule of Ice Age survival, he should already be dead. Instead, someone adjusts his bedding. Someone offers water. Someone keeps the fire alive through the night. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Slowly, bone knits together. Scars form. Life continues. Thousands of years later, archaeologists uncover those healed bones and realize they are looking at something far greater than an old injury. They are looking at evidence of a promise made long before history began, that survival was never meant to be a solitary act. Ancient humans treated serious injuries with herbs, splints, and remarkable ingenuity. But beneath all of that was something even more powerful: the decision that one wounded person was still part of the group. And perhaps that's the strangest discovery of all. Civilization may not have begun with agriculture, cities, or monuments. It may have begun the moment one human refused to leave another behind.